Hello and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining us. Very much appreciated. And in today's program, I'm going to be looking at a particular chart in 2020 when the price came up to the previous all-time high of 2017 and how that particular chart is playing out currently at the previous all-time high of 69,000. And why this particular chart pattern is saying that this may well be your last chance to board the Bitcoin train. I'm also going to have a look at the chart from Plan B, which is saying exactly where we are in the current bull market and how much longer we've got to go. Many people ask me about ratio trades that we do with the Bitcoin miners. So I'm going to go through some of the examples of the ratio trades that we've done with the private members section here at Wisdom Bites. So if that sounds interesting, then without further ado, get yourself a cup of tea, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen, and let's get cracking. But before I begin, the usual polite reminder, please remember everything in my videos is just for educational purposes. So please always do your wider research before you make any investment decisions or any swing trade decisions. Okay, so what is this chart pattern from 2020 which is screaming at us and saying that this may well be the last chance to board the Bitcoin train? And of course, only time will tell, but our job here is to read what the charts are saying and deduce and elicit information and forecast the possibilities and the probabilities of what may happen in the future. Okay, I'm going to move straight into the chart pattern, which is very interesting to have a look at because the current chart pattern over here, as we come up to the previous all-time high of 69,000, this pattern here seems to be following very similar when we were coming up to the previous all-time high at this point in 2020. So we're going to have a look at this point and see how the similarities are to this point currently where we're at. So on the daily chart, this was the 20,000 top that we came to at the end of 2017 for the end of the bull market in that cycle. And when we came back up here, but in 2020, this was the chart pattern that we were following before we had this big parabolic move to the upside. So I'm going to have a close look at this point here for you and then compare that with currently what's happening. So I'm going to take a screenshot of this point here as the price came up to the previous all-time high. And as you can see, once we crossed above the white line, the previous all-time high, look where the price went. So does anything look familiar here? Well, if we have a look at exactly this move that we've just had coming up to the 70,000 at this point, that resembles the same as in 2020 as we came up to the all-time high white line here. Then we had this correction just recently down to 60,000, and that was this correction back in 2020. Then we came back and retested this 70,000 previous all-time high one more time here, similar to 2020. And then we had a period of consolidation for a few days. And guess what happened here? And then we had this little correction, and we've just had that correction now. So where do you think the price of Bitcoin is going to go from here? Well, if this 2020 pattern was to continue, this is where we're heading. We may come back a little bit yet down here. So we could go down here before we come back there. So what it's really forming is a W pattern with a double bottom before we break the neckline and on our way to the upside. So it's very similar here, W pattern, double bottom, and then we come back to the upside before we break up. So something very interesting, which most people haven't actually cottoned on to yet. So that looks like quite a high probability play as far as I can see, because we know that the patterns do repeat, certainly at certain key resistance points, like the previous all-time highs, whether it be in 2020 or 2024. And slightly related to that, Plan B came out with his chart here, which maps out all of the cycles over the last 15 years. And the way I follow it is that it gives you a very good visual of exactly where we are at in terms of the current bull market. So if you go back to the first cycle here, we came to a top at this point. That was in December 2013. So we started off with the bottom of the market, which was the green zone here. Then that progressed into the blue zone. That was the second phase of the bull market. And the final phase started here with the red dots. So once the red dots start, this is what we call the parabolic end of the bull market, which ended up at this point. Then the second cycle started one more time with the green zone, followed by the blue zone, and then the parabolic red zone. And obviously the yellow zone here is the bear markets, and here one more time. So this was the last bear market here in 2018, followed by the blue zone, and that was then followed by the parabolic move to the top of the market. So the current cycle with the bear market in 2022, we've got the blue zone out of the way now, and we've now got 2 red dots. Now, if you look at all the red dots in the past, in the first cycle here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 dots here. Then in the second cycle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 dots here. And in the last cycle, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 dots here. So just based on the previous historical perspective, currently we've only got 2 dots. So that would mean that to come up to the previous average of about 10 months, we may have just about 8 more months to go here. And obviously that can be 1 or 2 months either way, but the average should be around about 10 months, and only time will tell what will happen. But these types of charts are very interesting and give us some sort of a guiding light. So there you have it. You've got the chart pattern from 2020 playing out currently in 2024, and you've seen by the chart by Plan B that we're only just getting started in this bull market, and we have several months to go for the end of this bull market. Okay, so I'm going to move on and have a look at the Bitcoin chart on the daily time frame in terms of the bull flag, and why that's also confirming that we're more than likely going to break to the upside. And so what we have here from this point at around about 38,000 is we have this bull flag, and at the top of this bull flag we've got this symmetrical pattern here. And what we know about this chart pattern is that when you have a chart pattern that's going in this direction, then this is usually a continuation pattern to the upside. And if you divide this pole, i.e. the part of the bull flag here, into 3 sections from the top to the bottom here, so in 3 sections, 1 here for the first third, the second third, and the last third. What we know about chart patterns is that when we have a consolidation in the top third in a bull flag, that once again is a higher probability to break to the upside. So anybody waiting for these prices to come back to these levels here, I think on the whole with a higher probability are mistaken to be waiting for these prices down here in the 50 to 51. Of course the possibility is there, but the probability would be around about between 5 and 10% at the very most. I think there is a probability to come back down to these levels down here to possibly retest the 60-61 level down here. So that is a possibility if it falls out of this flag, but I would expect a big jump back to the upside. So from a strategic point of view, in the short term, what we've got is an upper limit here now of around about 71,000, and this level here about 64,000. So we shouldn't really break below that. If it does, then we should find a lot of support at this point. And as we've seen in the past, there is a rising level of demand, and any amount of correction is bought up very, very quickly, as it has been all the way through up here. But this is a symmetrical pattern that we need to be really looking out for, and this usually breaks within about the 70% into the pattern. So around about here, we can expect this to start moving up towards this level before moving to the upside. So that's what I'm looking out for at the moment, and only time will tell what happens here. But once we do get above this level here at around about 71, it looks to me as though that to me will look like the last opportunity to have bought Bitcoin before powers through, as based on the chart pattern that I showed you in 2020. Okay, I'm just going to move on to the liquidations chart just to show you exactly why the Bitcoin price over here came all the way down to these levels. As you can see, with this very strong yellow zone here, these are all the stops for the longs on a leverage play, because this is the liquidation for the leverages here. And the price came all the way down, took all the leverage players out before starting to move back up again. So they've taken the leverage players out now, so we shouldn't really have to come back down. There aren't any more yellow zones anywhere down here. But as you can see, there are yellow zones here and over here. So the chances are we're going to go back up to around about towards the 67 in the short term. And now it's time for this. Yes, you've guessed it. It's the Backit Countdown. We're going to have another look at one of the indicators which will give us some sort of a very good clue as to when this bull market will end. So if we have a look at the first cycle over here, in order to get this curve, all you have to do is click this icon here and go down to arc, this one here. And then what you can do is you can play around with it like this. So we can see in this first cycle up to the end of 2013 when we topped out, we had this support level several times, And once you've got 3 support levels, that will extend this parabola arc. And once it starts to move out of that parabola, you can see this is when the bear market starts and goes down. So in order to avoid all that, a lot of people use this as a Backit indicator, i.e. an exit from the Bitcoin at the point where it breaks the parabola line here. Similarly, in the second cycle, which ended at the end of 2017 here, you can see that we had 1 touch point here, 2, 3, and several all along here. So this was a very strong indication with the parabola that once it breaks down below it at this point, in order to avoid the bear market, this is the time to get out of Bitcoin here. And in the last cycle, which ended in 2021, once again, we had 1 touch point, 2, and then another third one. That was a good clue, an indication that once you fall out of this at this point, that was the time to get out, and that would have avoided the bear market. But because we had 2 tops here, but obviously we weren't to know that it was going to go up to 69,000, but that was your first sign. But the way to use it for a second top would be that once we get above the previous top here at 64,000, you can move the parabolic line to encompass the new touch point. So you had the original one here, then the second one, and then the third one moves up here when you see this move to the upside, and then the other one was there. So once again, once it breaks the parabola, that's the time to get out. So it's a very good indication. You might not get the exact top, but you'll certainly avoid the big drop. So the question is, where are we with this parabolic curve at the moment? Okay, so if we take this as the bottom at this point, that's 1 touch point, 2 touch points. And so could this current one where we are now be the 3rd touch point, and that the price is now going to zigzag up along this curve? And wherever it breaks out of this, that is the time to get out. So only time will tell, but this certainly gives you a good indication as part of the Backit indicators that we are regularly having a look at here at Wisdom Bites. Okay, just want to move on to the ratio trades that we do in the private members section here at Wisdom Bites. That is where we cover all the Bitcoin miners. And people have been asking, what do I mean by the ratio trades? For those people who do foreign exchange, you will be more familiar with pairs trading. You're trading pairs of currencies like the British pound versus the dollar, etc. So very similarly, what we do with the Bitcoin miners, by looking at the ratio charts, only when it's in our favor do we actually swap one Bitcoin miner for the other. And I'll show you one of the ratio charts in a minute. So what I've done is I've taken 4 of the last 10 trades in the ratio trades that we normally do since the beginning of this year. So just to take you through to see how these work, on the 24th of January, we sold 2,811 Riot shares at this price at $10.63 for this amount at $29,880. And with that, we bought 13,105 Cypher shares. This is one of the other miners, at a price of $2.28. And the ratio of that trade was at 4.66, which is taken by 1063 divided by 2.28. And that gives you 4.66. So next time when the chart then moved in favor of Cypher, i.e. Cypher price going higher relatively to the Riot price, that actually happened within the range that I was looking at the time. And this happened on the 31st of January, so about a week later. And at that point, the 13,105 shares I'd bought in Cypher, we sold them here at the price of $3.14, raising 41,149 and buying 3,683 shares of Riot once again. So we started with Riot and we've ended here with Riot one more time at a price of 11.17. And if you do the ratio here, 11.17 divided by 3.14 gives you a ratio of 3.55. So these trades were done between a ratio of 3.5 and 4.5. So the next time when this ratio played out, i.e. Riot price went up higher relatively to the Cypher price, then we took the Riot shares here of 3,683 and sold them once again about a week later. So 3,683 shares of Riot sold at 11.14 this time, raising $41,021 and buying with that 15,841 units of Cypher at a price of $2.59. And the ratio at this point, once again, just like at this point here at 466, had risen to 4.3. And once again, we waited for the ratio to go the other way, and very quickly, within a week, this happened one more time. On the 11th of March, where we took the same units here of Cypher of 15,841 and sold them at 347, raising $54,968 and buying 4,429 units of Riot at $12.41. And that ratio was once again 1241 divided by 347 gives you 357. So the main thing to note here is that just with a series of just 4 trades, we've gone from the 24th of January with a position of $29,880, and 4 trades later, that money has now converted into $54,968. And that is actually without any risk, because when you sell one, i.e. Riot here, so immediately with this amount of money, you buy the shares that you want to buy without having to hold cash and taking the risk of the price moving against you. So you can see that this is how the ratio trades are played in the member section. Of course, there's no guarantee and you do have to wait. This is a patience game. For those people who don't have the patience to wait around, this is not for you. But for those people who can wait and who have the patience and can hold their nerve, this is a very good way of increasing your position size in a long-term portfolio, which otherwise might be a passive portfolio. So if I just show you on the ratios chart, this one is between Marathon and Cypher, and throughout 2023, I was doing these ratio trades down here in this range between about 3.5 and 4.5. And just to let you know that these things also happen, so these are not guaranteed, these are high probability plays. Everything in the stocks and shares are always about probabilities. So this was a probability play based on the previous historic chart patterns between these two Bitcoin miners. As you can see here, the market went against me in this region, but if you're patient enough, you'll see that the market comes back up and gives you another opportunity in this range one more time. But then once again, it broke up against the actual range here. So once again, we waited at this point when it went really against us here, but having made all the extra units all the long way, it gives you a little bit more confidence to wait and have the patience. And we waited to come back down to this level here. And in the last few weeks, we have been accumulating in this region of around about 4.5 and 5, having had the ratio go against us at 10 over here. So these are the types of things I share in the member section. Whenever there is an opportunity, I bring it to everybody's attention before we actually do the trade. And if you want to join us, all you have to do is click the join button below any of my videos here or in the description box at this point here. And for the price of a coffee per week, you get access to all the opportunities with the Bitcoin miners. Okay, so we'll leave it there. I hope you found value in the video. If you did, then please do remember to like and to subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you've got any comments, questions, or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.